Hello, welcome everybody to this first conversation. In this moment in which we had to cancel or to postpone our programs, we thought of creating a virtual space where we could present our projects, hold stimulating conversation with some of the masters who are collaborating with our institute in order to reflect together on musical matters of common interest, but also on this peculiar condition of musicians, especially those involved in intercultural exchange in these times of lockdown, closed borders, and confination. Zoom in on masters. This is how we call this series of three meetings. And we want to discuss our projects, especially those projects that due to the coronavirus, we had to postpone. And we thought that was really appropriate to start this conversation by involving Kudsi Erguner, an authoritative master and UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador, but that has been and is involved in the projects of our institute for well more of a decade. He started first as a ney teacher, teaching wonderful courses of ney flute, and then for several years now, he's curating a project that is very dear to us, that of Birun, in which over the years, several young and talented musicians, and some of them are here with us today, have been trained to the discovery or rediscovery of forgotten repertoires of classical Ottoman music in a project that combines didactic, musicology, performance, publication, a perfect blend for the aims of our institute. The conversation with Kudsi Erguner will be held by Giovanni De Zorzi, professor of ethnomusicology at the University of Venice, a specialist in both capacities as a scholar and a performer of this cosmopolite musical culture. He's also recent author of a book on Makam that presents this concept in a truly intercultural perspective, spanning from the Mediterranean to Central Asia. And he is involved in the Birun project since its inception in several capacities, ideation, and also his involvement in organizing the Preludio a Birun at the University of Venice in a wonderful collaboration for us. And I will let him start by briefly presenting to us, the Maestro Erguner, the Birun project, and what would have been the theme of this year's seminar that we count on realizing next year when this virus hopefully will be over. And then I will ask him to start this conversation with Kudsi Erguner and with all the other participants. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Giovanni. It's a great task, of course, and an honor at the same time to introduce Maestro Kudsi Erguner, or Kudsi Erguner Hocam, which is undoubtedly one of the most renowned traditional musicians in the world nowadays, and playing a great soloist of ney, obliquely held rim-blown flute, and he is coming from a very distinct tradition and family. His grandfather and his father that were both great soloists of ney, but his association with Mevlevi repertoire come for 16th century at least, so his family is tightly involved with Mevlevi tradition. Not only, let's say, practical musicians, but also a theorist and an intellectual. After 7 years of ney flute courses, he began with altogether me and Giovanni Giudiati the Birun project, and that it's a project in many phases, which involved the selection of many applications received from all over the world, and then a study day at the University of Venice, and a week in residence under the direction of Kudsi Erguner, which was very fruitful for all the musicians that participated. And then we have a recording session and a public concert. The recording section produced a huge amount of 6 recordings published by Nota Edizioni, which is a publisher of scholar academic things, but also of records. And the first one was in 2012. It was dedicated to the composers at the Ottoman court, and the second was on Armenian composer at the in Ottoman classical music. And so only for this detail, you should imagine how a rebel is Kudsi in many ways. The third was dedicated to the Maftirim on Jewish and Sephardic in Ottoman classical music, another heretical theme. The fourth was devoted to the Greek composers in Ottoman Makam, and the transcriptions were made by Giannis Koutis, which is here with us, and it was based on manuscripts in different monasteries in actual Greece, once Ottoman Empire, and this fifth record, it's a double album, and it's dedicated to the compositions of Abdul Qadir Maraghi in 15th century, and music from the course from Herat to Istanbul is really a jewel. And last but not least, I hope, was devoted to the nefes of the Bektashi Sufi Brotherhood. This year, in 2020, the theme was the compositions of Prince Dimitrie Cantemir. And unfortunately, the COVID decided in another way. In order to introduce the theme, I should say for the vast public that who was Dimitrie Cantemir? Dimitrie Cantemir, the dates are 1673 and 1723, and he was a prince of Moldavia. He was the son of the ruler of Moldova, the voivode of Moldova, and arrived very at a young age in Constantinople as a hostage. So we have your child in our hands. So don't begin to rebel to the Ottoman state. And he arrived at a young teenager in 1682, and there he grew up and was educated alla turca, as we should say. And he was a genius, and he decided not to pass his time in jeunesse dorée, in debauch, and rather he fell in love with the Ottoman art music, Makam. Studied with the great masters of his epoch, played the long-necked lute tambour, and around the first years of the 18th century, between 1701 and 1703, he wrote as a Western-minded a treatise in order to put in order all he learned. And the treatise is called the Kitab al-Ilm al-Musiki al-Avech al-Hurufat, the book on the science of music according to the alphabet notation. The first part is a treatise in itself on Makam, on Seir, and on many subjects, and the second part it's 350 compositions written down in a system of alphabetical notation, for this reason in the huruf, which give us, with 15 years earlier, Mejmuai Sazuzov by Bobovsky, and some 30 years later, Kevseri Mejmua, a bulk a written book on Ottoman art music. Then his life, he was appointed Bogdan Bey of Moldova and returned to Moldova, but allied himself with Peter the Great, the Tsar of Russia, and spent the rest of his life in Russia. So he betrayed Ottoman. In the treatises, there is a nucleus of composition written by Cantemir himself. So, the first question I would like to pose to Maestro Kudsi Erguner is what are the peculiarities of this rather strange genius from the West in the perspective, in the background of Ottoman classical maqam?
First, I would like to have a reaction to your expose, which is very brilliant. But you mentioned that Cantemir was in hostage in Istanbul. I think we cannot call it hostage because the situation is comparable with all the Arab emirs. They were formed in the British Army and became afterward the emir. The same thing for many children of the presidents of today. They are formed in Harvard University. So he was himself, let's say, as a guest of the Sultan.
Let's say.
In a sense, and formed in a very specific way in the what we call Enderun, because that's a very important part, because Birun means outside of the palace, and Cantemir was formed inside of the palace. So as he has been 3 times separately, because he already came the first time he was 14 years old, so he didn't have a formation to have a really Western mind, if you that we can call. He learned Latin. He was formed as in philosophy. He was also introduced in philosophy because his first teacher was a Crete man, Jeremia Kakavellas, a very good musician and knowledge man. So when he was in Istanbul from 14 years old, he was directly into the Ottoman art in the But very curiously, he had in his subconscious a sort of very specific way of the music of his time, like the Baroque period, and so we can recognize absolutely from his compositions that this piece is really Cantemir's and not only transcribed by him. Because I just would like to underline also a fact that today we have so many pieces in the repertoire considered as Cantemir composition, which is not, because they are just only the transcriptions done by him. So we can really distinguish his own compositions by their specific style and the way that he treated the forms, the traditional forms like Peşrev or Semâ and the instrumental forms. And so he really had his own style. So in general, we can say that we have nearly 50 pieces that could be from Cantemir himself.
I would like to just add the fact that a young musicologist and canon player coming from Birun was the one that recently transnotated the Kevseri Mecmuase and the Mustafa Uğur Ekinci, who lives in Ankara and who participated to one of the first edition, I think the first edition of Birun.
Fantastic. Yeah, it is. Thank you for underlining this, because he really made a great work. There is one more manuscript that we are still waiting, hoping that it comes, and which is done by the famous, the master of the Tekke of Pera for the whirling dervishes in Istanbul, Nahi Osman Dede. But maybe it would be interesting for the audiences to develop a bit the problem of the written transmission and the oral transmission in the Ottoman music, because we know that the music needs to be transmitted orally, because you cannot play something that you didn't hear and memorize. That was the concept. and till the early 20th century, all the musicians, they were against the notation because they thought that it was a big gap for the music. But we know that by the fact that the memory is so fragile, we lost many compositions also. I can give the example that Hafız Post, who was a composer just before Cantemir, he mentions in his manuscript more than 1,000 compositions, the name of them and the lyrics. And from this 1,000, we have not even 50 of them today. So there is a big gap because of this. So what are the writings? Because all this writing of this makam music, modern music, for me is not only abject but also Byzantine writing. Because
of course,
Yannis will correct me if I do a mistake. From 8th century they started to write, and today, for the post-Byzantine period, if we need to search for some Ottoman pieces lost, we should learn the Byzantine writing and make research in the monasteries and the Greek communities to discover them. So this is the oldest thing. But then we have also this Nayi Osman Dede that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
He wanted to do exactly the same thing of Cantemir with the names of the degrees to write the musical notation. But unluckily, this manuscript is locked down in the museum.
Rapti Tabirati Musiki.
Not Rapti Tabirati Musiki.
No.
Rapti Tabirati Musiki is the etymology of the musical terms. But this is another thing. He did exactly like Cantemir. He did transcribed pieces. And I invite, by this occasion, the musicologists that they have the knowledge to try to find and convince the Turkish Ministry of Culture and to have the access to this manuscript and give us the opportunity to play these pieces transcribed by him. And then comes, but before all of them, there is Ali Ufki Bey that maybe he merits to, because Bobovsky, who was a Polish prisoner, and he saved himself by becoming Muslim, and he took the name Ali Ufki Bey. So he wrote his Mejma by the early transcription of the Porte with 5 lines of the Western music, Western notation, and this Mejma has been published, and so we have some pieces also coming from Ali Ufki. What is curious, Ali Ufki Bey was maybe 20, 30 years before Cantemir, but Cantemir didn't know him because he doesn't mention his work and he didn't have any idea of his work. And
nobody had it because he just copied down on his little books and sent to Europe.
I mean, he didn't know about the person also of Cantemir, the Ali Ufki Bey. And then there is the Cantemir's work that, as you exposed, Kitab-ı İlm-i Musiki ve Hurufat, and then we come to Hamparsum. He is very important, the Armenian Hamparsum, that luckily, thanks to Birun project, we could play some pieces of him. Hamparsum was an extraordinary personality and musician. He was really nearly excommunicated by the Armenian community because they hated the idea of singing with the notation. You see this relation of the musical writing. And this Hamparsum notation, which is a sort of stylization of the Armenian writing, which became very, very often used, and to the generation of my fathers, they were all reading the music with Hamparsum just before the Western notation arrived. So, and then there is the Western notation, which is another catastrophe. Which is not really adapted to the music, which makes that you can use the music scores for help memory, but not to play something. That's because it's not an exact writing.
please let me ask you to play something if you want, and to give some musical example, and that can put in music what you told us in words.
I would like to play a piece of Cantemir, which is a Pencgâh in Makam Pencgâh Sasemaisi.
Thank you, thank you. Teşekkür ederim. And I will propose you now the moment to take into consideration another subject, which is the subject of the tradition transmission. And normally we had a system called MESC of oral learning, and there was learning through impregnation, let's say staying with the master, and it was done also in the Enderun, but also in the dervish centers called Tekke, Zavia, Dargah, and in families. And this would maybe the cue in order to call on the scene your son, Selman, which is, from this point of view, it is a perfect example of a bicultural musician raised through Western conservatoire, but also with you, without direct example. And I think it would be nice for everyone to listen to you and Selman play together.
I don't know if he accepts to play with me.
Selman will play the viola, the alto,
yeah.
an instrument that inherited from his grandfather. So
Yes.
it's also another, in itself, it's a symbol, let's say, it's a proof in itself of the tradition transmission inside the family.
Well, I must say that Selman, he plays ney, he plays viola, he plays guitar.
Yes.
What does he play?
Other little instruments.
We want to present you another piece of Cantemir, which is more baroque, as if you want, as I mentioned, is a Bûselik Peşrev of him that I played many times because it's really very charming and joyful piece. Maybe you will appreciate, I hope.
Thank you very much. Teşekkür ederim Selman, Kudsi. And I will move to another part of our meeting. I would like to have the experiences and the pieces of information from some that were involved in with you in the Birun masterclasses and during an early phase of their flowering career. And the soloists are Tristan Drissens, and then Michalis Kholevas, and then Giannis Koutis, and Reza Mirjalali, and Zeynep Yildiz Abbasoglu, and maybe myself. But I will begin with Tristan Drissen, which is an oud player and a musicologist, and Tristan specialized in Makam and Turkish oud in Istanbul under the supervision of Necati Çelik, and he is the founder and director of a La Mekan ensemble. And in 2016, he founded Seir Music, a record label and research center focusing on Ottoman and other Middle Eastern musical traditions. Please welcome Tristan.
Welcome, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. So back in 2012, when I was having the great chance of having this scholarship in order to attend to the first edition of Birun, it was the time that I already met Kudsi Erguner before, because his presence during my two master courses prior to the first edition was of very significant importance for me. He was very present in helping me out during, for example, the time that I was writing my thesis about Ottoman Makam and Taksim. But so I can say I was already starting to get specialized in the field of Ottoman music by the time that I arrived in Venice to attend to the seminar. But as I remember now, after 8 years, Birun gave me kind of a more broad frame of the field of Ottoman music in the way that Kudsi made us deal with, of course, in the first place, Makam and Usul, but also improvisation, Taksim, and also the repertoire that he offered us was for me what actually as a revelation. Also in my life, I can say, I think without exaggeration, that Birun was like a key moment, because in the first place it was the starting point of further collaboration with Kudsi Erguner himself in the following years, which for me was always a very great joy, but also as a platform for meetings. As you mentioned, I founded the La Mekan ensemble a little bit earlier on, before the first edition of Birun, but Birun allowed me to find my singer, the singer of the La Mekan ensemble, which is Ridvan Aydınlı. And until today, I really owe a lot of the fact that I was in Venice. And thanks to that encounter, I found the final setting of this six-piece ensemble. Of course, I think it's the same for all of us. Kudsi Erguner is really one of my main masters, who keeps on orienting me through the labyrinths, I would say, of this quite complex field of Ottoman music. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tristan. It's very touching. And I will move to another great musician that attended the Birun courses from the very first beginning, which is Michalis Kholevas. He was attending also the Ney masterclass. Michalis is a multi-instrumentalist, playing the Ney, the Yaile tambour, the tarhu, and the saz. He is working as a performer, composer, and teacher. And except for music, he has a passion for wood turning. So please, Michalis, tell your story.
Well, hi, thank you for the invitation. It's, as you said, like I met with Kudsi in 2008. I was invited by another friend who was attending the workshops even before that. That's Jan Hendricks.
Jan Hendricks.
And it was a very important moment for me, and it changed completely my musical, let's say, career. I was in the middle of my master back then, and meeting Kudsi helped me dive into Ottoman music even more. And except for that, it was the beginning of a collaboration that led to a program of Ottoman music at the Rotterdam Conservatory of Music. So as a student, I pushed the administration to bring Kudsi as a teacher, which didn't happen. But a few years later, I found myself in the position of the head of the Turkish department, and my first move was to push the director to bring directly Kudsi. Then Kudsi came in 2011 in Rotterdam, and everything changed. We started with a master program that developed also to a bachelor program, which is the only one in Europe, from what I know, that like the only conservatory in Europe that offers a bachelor and a master program in Ottoman music. And I think that has gradually changed the map of Ottoman music in Europe. I think Kudsi started having a lot of students of great level coming from all around the world. So the vision of Birun, with facilitating different programs for different composers, actually found also another home as well in Rotterdam. And I'm very proud and honored to be part of this. And another huge effect for me was the invitations of Kudsi to perform with him. So it is as Tristan said, like since 2008, Kudsi is my teacher and he will always be my teacher. But I was lucky enough as well to perform next to him in a few occasions and tour around the world and meet other cultures and other people. So it has been a great experience and an ongoing learning one.
Thank you, Michalis. And as you mentioned, the Rotterdam Conservatoire, the Codarts, let me introduce another fruit of the presence of Kudsi at the Codarts, which is another Greek fabulous musician, which is Giannis Koutis, that has studied Byzantine music and short-necked lute, oud, and classical guitar. He has a master degree on music focused on modern music and oud from the Codarts Conservatory of Rotterdam. Please welcome Giannis.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to see you all even through a monitor and not face to face, but at least we have a chance to share some information and some moments. For me, it was and it is a great privilege that I had Kudsi Erguner as my main subject teacher, and since then I consider him a kind of mentor for me. And he was the one who proposed to focus on unpublished works of Greek composers, and in my occasion Petros Lambadarios. And it was a great memorable moment to have from 2016, where we worked in the context of Birun masterclass on these works. And for me, like, there are so many things to have in my memory, but definitely to be part of this team, let's say, at Birun, and work intensively for a week, more or less, under the guidance of Kudsi, who is a source of knowledge, not only on musical aspect but philosophical aspect, and as a human being in general. It is a great way to focus on this music, what we say classical Ottoman music, and to see the different point of views through the other musicians that we were playing together, and with the highlight of the recording as well, to see how this music could be recorded, and of course to perform it live. The very last time I participated at the church of San Giorgio Maggiore, which is a magical place to play, and I think I wouldn't have otherwise the chance to perform not only there but on the same stage with Kudsi. It's all these memories that while talking come into my mind, but I'm feeling very blessed to be part of the Birun ensemble and the Cini Foundation works.
Thank you, Giannis. Let me introduce to you another brilliant participant of Birun, a Persian, I should say, rather than an Iranian, which is Reza Mirjalali, and he started music at an early age, and when already he was 7 with his father, Shahram Mirjalali, which underline again the question of the tradition transmission with his father, Shahram Mirjalali. He managed to give concert at the age of 14. And then when he was 17, he started touring with his father. And in 2013, he moved to the Netherlands to study world music at the Rotterdam Conservatoire. And in 2017, he graduated from Codarts under the direction of Kudsi Erguner. During his conservatory education, he gave many concerts worldwide and had collaboration with many bands and genres. Currently, he is working on his main album. So welcome, Reza Mirjalali.
Hi, hello everybody. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be on the same screen with all these brilliant musicians, and especially with Kudsi. And the Birun project has like multi-dimensional layers for me. What I mean with that is we come from different background, different cultures, and different musical paths, but we are going to play the same beautiful music was chosen with Kudsi, you know. And it was always a pleasure for me because whenever I see Kudsi or I meet him, it's like even when I'm down or I'm feeling like I don't have energy or something, it makes me up, you know. It gives me the motivation for having so many things and make things, you know, because he is full of energy, and I hope he's going to be always like that. And my father always says your second musical father is Kudsi. And about Birun, I'm going to say it also enabled us to create a really good connection with other musicians, like from another part of the world, which I would never be maybe able to meet them in a normal life. For example, now I have friends in Italy and Turkey, and whenever I go there, I meet them and we keep recording or we play or we chat. And that's amazing. And it's because of Kudsi and the Cini. And about the Foundation Cini also, I wanted to say it was a great pleasure to be part of it, because everything is well prepared and smooth for you. You just concentrate on your music under the lead of Master Kudsi Erguner, and you will take the best out of it. And I hope it's gonna have a continuity, and it was a pleasure for me to be on the same stage with him and with all these great musicians who were attending in those concerts.
Thank you, Reza. I've forgotten to say that Reza played long-necked lute tar, and for this reason I introduced him as a Persian musician, because he deals with Persian art music, which is rather different from what happened in Iran during the 20th century, because everybody changed it. And so thank you, Reza, and I will move to the grace that enlighten us, and the grace of a girl, Zeynep Yildiz Abbasoğlu, which is a qanun player, plucked Zither qanun, and she holds a PhD on Islamic art history, and her work focuses on the Central Asian and Ottoman Turkish music, and she is not only a brilliant musician, but also a brilliant upcoming musicologist. So welcome, Zeynep.
Thank you, Giovanni, for your words, and I would like to thank you again for this conversation, because it was very nice to listen to. And I would like to say I have been a part of the ensemble twice. First one at 2017 and second one last year. Both were very valuable experiences for me, actually, and working with Kudsi Hoca is very pleasant, and his repertoire also is always very distinguished, and he makes me feel confident on stage, and this positively affects my performance, actually. In addition, the Cini Foundation also provides a comfortable and actually wonderful environment for the performers, and in this way we can only concentrate on music, on our concerts, and playing with the musician friends from different countries who I met in Birun ensemble also was really stimulating. So I feel privileged to have this opportunity, and I hope we get back together soon again.
Thank you. Let's hope to meet you, everybody, in the next future. Kudsi and Giovanni asked me to speak also about my very personal experience. I'm rather older than all these young fellows, and I was a saxophone player. I began to play ney in 1997, between 1997 and 1998, entering in contact with Kudsi Erguner and his, at that time, an assistant, Stéphane Gallet. And we, at the same time, I began to, let's say, to work on the to write on the master and the DEA and then the PhD on various subjects of Ottoman art, music, and Central Asian questions. And then I taught myself, as incredible that this should sound, at the Conservatory in Padova and Vicenza. And when I had the chance, I invited firstly Stéphane Gallet, and then Kudsi Erguner, and then we had this beautiful experience of Birun. And as a musician, Kudsi always gave me information, and also I have to say that our first record of the ensemble Maraghi that I founded is based on material that we studied with Kudsi at the ney courses, and he, so you have an idea how gentle he can be. He printed and sent me a lot of scores by Abdulkadir Maraghi, and it's not only a personal thing, it is very caring to all his students and disciples. So from this point of view, it's a very gentle man. You can imagine traveling all over the world and working and teaching and playing and blah blah, having the time to making photocopies and for a young Italian guy. So I add my voice to the choir of the thank you, Kudsi.
I'm listening to all these beautiful words about me. I'm very much touched, and thank you to all of you and to estimate me so much, and I hope that I merit it really. Also, as I've been expressing my thankfulness to Fondazione Cini, to Institute of Musica Comparata, to the University of Venezia also.
To Sabrina and Chiara, who is listening.
And to Sabrina and Chiara, that they've been working so hardly to organize all this. And I think this kind of opportunity could not be done without the passion that we have each of us, and also this opportunity that offers us a foundation like Fondazione Cini. I would like also to add, after all these years of collaboration and support from the Foundation of Cini, that I want to will all my audio collection to the foundation, and I am sure that in this way it will be valued and it will be useful to many researchers, and I'm really thankful to the Cini Foundation and all the collaborators of this foundation. To end everything, I would like to finish with some words from Cantemir, which is a next year project. I hope that if it happens, because he says that he makes a comparison about because he says the music is an infinitive art. There is no end to it. Why? He says that the music is comparable with the sounds which exist in all the languages, syllables and sounds that we produce when we speak in any language. They may be put together, they will be maybe 30 or 50, but there are millions of languages appearing, disappearing, and continuing of existing with so many millions of words. So the music is like this. The number of the sounds, they can be very limited comparing the meaning that we can express through the music. And these words of Cantemir, I find it very, very just and correct. And I hope that our work also in Birun will be infinitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Kudsi. And so we would like to try to close with a final group performance on Zoom, despite the limitation of technology. I think we should try to play Rast, Berefşan, Peşrev by Dimitrie Cantemir. Kudsi made a special arrangement in call and answer, or Karabatak, Peşrev in Cantemir. Eyvallah. Thank you.
Thank you all for this wonderful conversation that was enlightening. And of course, we have in preparation a video of this wonderful concert that was mentioned in the Basilica of San Giorgio. And we really hope to go on with this project and to meet in person next year. Thank you, everyone.